So the Memory Palace demonstration I'm about to show you is for the Mohs hard scale. That's a scale of increasing strength in minerals. This is a combo video that will show you both my demonstration of it, but also afterwards I'll show you the images I used, if I can find them, or I'll just give you ideas for your own. This is a nice easy one. There's only 10 stops. So if you've got a location, a house, even a walk down the road, as long as you've got 10 stops, say a Ford Fiesta there, say your neighbour has a Ford Fiesta, put one of the images there and the next one, and you can just develop it fairly easy. This one, only 10 stops. So without further ado, I'll go into my Memory Palace like this. Now I use a hospital near me, and I go through the hospital. 10 stops, here we go. The first one is talc, second is gypsum, third is calcite, fourth is fluorite, fifth is apatite, sixth is feldspar, seventh is quartz, eighth is topaz, ninth is corundum, and the 10th is diamond. So that's a pretty rapid, but it's nice to have, especially for quizzing purposes. Excuse my hair, but I don't have much of it left, and that's why I've got to style it like that. And I'm also a bit of a moron because I keep looking over there and not there where the camera is. Forgive me. But here come the images anyway, and I'll do a voiceover to explain the process. So this is the part where I'll give you some ideas for the images that you can use to build a part of your Memory Palace to store the Mohs scale of the hardness of minerals. It sounds more complicated than it is, but it's actually very simple. This is a great section to add to your Memory Palace, as you only need 10 stops. Now the periodic tutorial that I did had 118, so it's much simpler. Now you can even do this one with one room as long as it's large enough for 10 stops. But I would suggest that you have a couple of locations so that you can space them out properly. So before I guide you through this process, it would be advantageous if you already have a location in mind where you can store the images. Now, even if you haven't had the chance to actually construct a space that you can place these 10 minerals, don't worry too much. Carry on watching the video because it's going to be useful to reflect on the images and perfect the sound-like principle that will aid you when you are finally ready to add these to your Memory Palace. Now, a quick note for those who are watching but might not have seen my other videos. The sound-like principle is something I came up with that makes associations much simpler. Now, that's going to become clear as we go through this Memory Palace. Now, the Memory Palace that I'm accessing here is a location that I know fairly well. It's a hospital that's quite near me. And it's actually got quite a few like anniversaries, but I'm going to a specific section at the back of the hospital where I've got the 10 stops needed to memorise the Mohs scale. Alright, so let's crack on. So our first item is talc, and it probably won't take you a huge leap to associate that with baby powder. Now, as in my previous videos, I will emphasise that one needs to make the image strange and bizarre, and really as interactive as possible. Now, for the first stop, I'm standing at the elevators, and by the wall I see a giant tub of talcum powder, and an athlete using the powder that's dropped onto the floor to powder her hands, as athletes sometimes do. Now, once that image is cemented, we can advance to our next stop, and we're ready to move on. The next object we need to memorise is gypsum. Now, it was once quite popular to make blackboard chalk out of gypsum, and hence the image chosen. But you can make the image out of anything you like, as long as it makes you think of gypsum. Now, if you're a plasterer or builder, the image may be, and probably will be, quite different on from the one I've chosen. But what if nothing comes to mind? Well, that's fine, since we can use the sound-like principle. So if you partition or break up the word gypsum in such a fashion, you can make a new image, or you can think of something. So now I turn around, I look to my left, and the elevator doors open. And this is the third stop, and I can see a skeleton dancing. Now, in the first part of my periodic table tutorial, I stated that whenever I see a skeleton, I always think of the element calcium. Now, the mineral we have to remember here is calcite, and that is why I chose the skeleton. Now, I enter the elevator with the dancing skeleton, making sure not to get in his way, and we descend down 2 levels. When I exit the lift, I see a huge bunch of flowers, which reminds me of the mineral fluorite. Again, I've used the sound-like principle here. But the bunch of flowers is so big that I swear my allergies will play up. Now, adding this level of detail aids me in recalling the images at a later date. Our 5th mineral is apatite. Or just look at that image, look at the food. Now, I don't know about you, but that makes me extremely hungry, and I know I have a good appetite. Again, that is the image that I use, but you may choose anything you wish, just make the association obvious. So the mineral is apatite. Our next one, moving on and crossing down a hall, I see a spa shop. Why spa? Well, this is due to our having to remember Feldspar. I find that once I have at least one half of the word associated, like spa and Feldspar, it's not too difficult for my brain to latch automatically on to the missing part. But you may find it better to represent the entire word Feldspar with an image rather than just the spa bit if you're practicing or new to building memory palaces. As I go through, number 7 is quartz. Now let's rhyme here, and quartz as in the law court, the law courts. So that reminds me of quartz. So I may see a judge with a gavel. But here you may think of a judge, or maybe a tennis court even. Or what about a watch with a tiny quartz crystal? The image is not so important as long as the association is easy enough to recognise. Here, if you used a watch, I don't want you getting confused with using the watch as the image and not focusing on the quartz crystal. Now I'm advancing to a very specific area of the hospital, and I see the rapper Tupac. That to me is topaz. Now, it may be easier to imagine the colour of topaz or create some other association that you find easier. Now, if you find or can improve on my images, feel free to comment your ideas. I'd love to hear them. Remember to make the images disturbing, weird and bizarre. Now there are only 2 left. The first one is Corundum. Here I suggest a drum in the image, which sounds like the last part of the word. The word. Dumb and drum. Corundum and drum. But I actually used the TV show Countdown here, and the final puzzle of that show, which is a conundrum. Here corundum sounds like conundrum, and hence why I use that. But again, break up the word and make your own image if you need to. Now the last one is really simple. Yep, it's a diamond. You probably won't need any help with that image. Though I'll emphasize that just imagining a diamond won't be enough. You can't just imagine a single diamond. Maybe it's raining diamonds because you've reached the end of the Mohs scale section of your memory palace. But you'll have to make the image vibrant and strange. Now that concludes the walkthrough for the Mohs scale of mineral hardness. Now I would really suggest perfecting this one before any of the longer projects like the periodic table, as it's simpler and contains less stops. The Mohs scale has only 10 stops, whereas the periodic table had 118 stops, so it's much simpler to get your head around. So please like and subscribe the video, and let me know how you get on in the comment section. Cheers.